Hey everyone, this is part 2 of my Ron Deranged Detective series. If you want to check out part 1, the link will be down in the description below. With that out of the way, let's continue on with the characters. Let's start with the titular character himself, Ron Kamonohashi. From the first on-screen appearance after the 5-year time skip, he was slowly starting to become my favorite. He displays his detective knowledge by gathering context clues from Totomaru when they first meet and makes correct deductions based on that. He has an addiction to brown sugar syrup to the point where he puts it on everything he eats, likes platypuses, disguises himself using costumes and aliases when helping Totomaru on cases, and channels his inner spirit medium by lying down next to the corpses and talking to them while examining. But he's not without his flaws, as he can get tunnel vision while solving cases, being apathetic and rude to everything and the people around him, on top of being bored if there's no cases to solve, which I can relate to when it comes to some of the things I enjoy doing. And he's not that bad of a guy. Despite not being the most sociable of people, he cares about people's lives and feels immense guilt whenever he accidentally pressures someone to kill themselves. You can't help but to root for him as he figures out who did this to him and learns about the tragedy 5 years ago in order to move past it and become a detective again. And now he's up there on the list as one of my favorite eccentric characters in fiction. Then we have Totomaru, or Toto as Ron calls him dad. He's the pure-hearted, empathic, and straightforward person of the duo, oftentimes speaking and acting before he thinks, being a little gullible at times, but is dedicated to his job as a detective as much as Ron, as he wants to save people as much as he can. There are so many as much in my script, I didn't even realize that. And while he did start out pretty incompetent at detective work thanks to Ron, he slowly but surely gained some detective knowledge and how each culprit of every case got away with murder. Plus, the two help each other out in some ways. Ron helps out Toto solving cases, and Ron starts to warm up to the people around him after spending time with Toto. And speaking of people, there are a few supporting cast members that occasionally pop up every once in a while to help the duo with some of the cases. Let's start with Amamiya. She's the leader of the first investigation division and Toto's boss. While she doesn't have that much relevance in the story right now, she displays a hard-working, smart deducting person. And while she did underestimate Toto at the start, she learns that he works just as hard as she does and starts to respect him. Somewhat. For example, in chapter 36, when a person who was recently close to Toto got murdered, requested to be assigned to the case, but Amamiya declined him at first, reminding him not to bring personal emotions to work. Then she remembers an event in her past and changes her mind by faking a phone call. While we don't know what event she was thinking of, it does give up some setup that will hopefully be paid off in later parts of the manga. Next we have Omito Kwasemi. He's a police detective from a separate district and Amamiya's old co-worker. And his personality is like a person with OCD but on crack, as he's often seen carrying around a pair of tweezers to point out or correct all kinds of disorders, and have no qualms to call attention to other people's messes or mistakes and uses his tweezers on them, otherwise known as his tweezer discipline. That observant behavior helped him solve the most murder cases in the country and be given the nickname Eagle Eye Kasemi. And similar to Ron, he may be a bit cold to others, but he deeply cares for his subordinates to the point where he's lying for them in order to protect them. Like in chapter 6, where he lied to Toto and Ron about what happened to the culprit while pursuing them in order to protect his right-hand man. Only to realize that his strictness caused his partner immense stress and pressure to live up to Kasemi's standards. Afterwards, he began to be more careful with his behavior and suppress his direct comments. However, he stilts himself too much, and as a result, he starts to make mistakes and fall into a case-solving slump, which leads to Amamiya sending Toto to help him with the case he's working on. Mostly because she wants to hear how bad his slump is, but he does get over it later with Ron's help. For a character that only appears in 3 chapters, he does get some pretty good development, and I hope I get to see him in later parts. Then we have Mofo Yusaki, a world-renowned neurosurgeon who does surgeries on a microscopic scale, and is a genius who is hyper-specialized in medicine, but is also known to be the clumsiest person alive that even Marcy from Amphibia will be worried for her. But when it comes to her work, she's very earnest and focused on preserving human life as she believes it's invaluable. She's the one who Ron asked for help about his ability, and she was willing to develop a way to suppress Ron's kill on sight ability. However, it requires that he has to take a combination of various experimental medicines and not so safe methods. On Ron's insistence, Mofu allows him to take the medicine in her presence. It goes well as you can expect it, as in chapter 28, the chapter that introduced the medicine. After finding the culprit and the method that he did to kill, the medicine worked, but causing Ron to be knocked unconscious for a few days, as well as gaining lost memories from his childhood. She was about to revoke the medicine she developed, but Toto begs to let Ron take it, even when she's not there, and she agrees to it. Overall, she's a sweet but determined person who cares about people's well-being. And finally, Chicory Monkey, a crime reporter for the newspaper Lime Weekly and a Myers detective due to being rescued from a kidnapping case when she was younger. In chapter 14, she was put in charge of writing a section in the newspaper, and after learning and researching about Toto's accomplishments from the past few cases, she grew to love him and wants to write about him, leading into her shadowing him for the day. She's pretty enjoyable to see, and I like the dynamic of her revering Toto like a high-status celebrity or god, while being annoyed with Ron, wondering why he's even near Toto in the first place with his high and mighty attitude. But Ron sees an opportunity with Chicory as she can provide valuable information on cases, and she does do that on separate occasions. Sometimes it's good to exploit your friend's connections. Oh wait, that came out wrong. Overall, a very enthusiastic character. The Detective Training Academy Blue is a minor antagonist in part 1, and the reason why Ron can't become a public detective just yet. The reason being a past incidents of him pursuing culprits that ended up dying, so they expelled him, revoked his detective license, and banned him from doing any detective work. And if he's ever caught, he'll be reported and sentenced to death. A little extreme for my tastes, however, they do give a reason saying that a detective who kills people must not be tolerated. So I guess they're following the Batman code. That's the reason why Toto will appear like he's solving mysteries by himself with Ron helping from the shadows. But it seems that in chapter 3, Blue caught on some rumors that Ron is back in the detective game and discussed that if the chance he's doing detective work, there could be a major casualty. So the principal, Emmy Elrich, decides that there should be an investigation on him, and tracking instructor Spitchfield volunteers to go see if the rumors were true. He trails Ron, seeing him win a trip to a hot springs resort and disguise himself as a receptionist there. And after a murder that occurred and was solved thanks to our duo here, he corners Ron, and it seems like he was about to report him, but Ron caught on earlier that he was desperate for something, and so Spitz gave up on the act and begs Ron for help on a case. Ron declines, but Spitz figures it's because he's a blue instructor and so he couldn't be trusted. So he spends the next few chapters working his way to help Toto and Ron with any investigation they might come across. There's also a few more blue instructors that cross paths with the duo, like the Autopsy, Locked Room, and Closed Circle, who all play key roles in helping Ron solve the mystery of his incident. But I'll get to them in a little bit. For now, I really want to talk about the pacing/consistency of this story.